All right, welcome back to Blue by the Numbers. I'm your host, Tanner, joined by my good friend, Brian Boughton. Brian, it's been a while.
It has been a minute.
We did not do a post-national championship show. I don't think anybody cared to hear about the PFF grades from the national championship, but it's been a while since we've done a show. A lot of changes in the Michigan football program, as we all know. But man, just good to see you. Good to be back. Good to have football season here.
So excited to be back. Good to see you for the first time as a dad. So that's very exciting stuff in your world. But yeah, excited about the season. Let's get it going.
I know, man. Yeah, a lot of changes. Sharon Moore, first year as the full-time official head football coach at the University of Michigan. And, coming in, a lot of uncertainty, expecting a lot of talent just from the way they recruited and the way that they develop guys, but a lot of question marks, especially on offense surrounding this team. You compare 2024 to 2023 coming in, it's like, oh yeah, we got JJ, Blake, Donovan, tight end, we got Colson Loveland, AJ Barner. Offensive line we know is going to be good. Receivers, we got Roman and CJ. So this year coming in, it's like, well, we got Colston, we got Donovan, we got Kalel. Outside of that, Samaj and Tyler Morris had made plays later in the season last year, were big time down the stretch, but it's kind of coming in like, what's this team going to look like? And I don't think we have that answer yet because it was very vanilla. I mean, it was very, very vanilla, just painfully clear that they were not going to do anything other than the most basic type of play calls with Texas coming to town this week. So what were your thoughts on the offense, specifically quarterback, O-line? I think those are always the two most important position groups on the offensive side of the ball. And, what were your thoughts and kind of in the context of, well, they didn't really let Davis Warren sling it. Because I thought Davis was incredibly accurate, but he didn't have a ton of opportunities to really push the ball down the field.
No, I mean, in general, like most people that watched and were anticipating this great, first game, I was frustrated watching it. I've since watched it again and found a lot of more positives and things to feel good about. But I thought it was really vanilla. I thought, they just got stalled too many times. And I thought the play calling was really frustrating at times. But the more I've watched it, the more it makes sense, the more I'm optimistic about some of the things. But there's still some questions, no doubt.
Absolutely.
To not acknowledge that would not be genuine. I think there's some things to be concerned about. And when your bar is JJ McCarthy and a 15-0 national championship team, we don't want to adjust our measurement guide there. But I think there is something to consider, and so we'll see.
Yeah, I was at the game. Fun atmosphere. It's going to be crazy this week against Texas, so I'm sure it'll be even more impactful as far as the crowd noise goes and all the pageantry surrounding the game. But it was nice to be back, and hearing the James Earl Jones video got everybody hyped up, especially when he said "in pursuit of national championships." That was pretty sweet. But yeah, I mean, going in, for me, I felt the same exact way as you, Brian. Like in the moment, I'm like, oh my gosh. Is this team gonna win 6 games? Like I'm not typically pessimistic. I'm reactionary, but over the long haul, I typically come back to earth and I don't get too high, too low. In the moment, I was very frustrated, same as you. I think a lot of us probably were, but on rewatch, when I went back, I thankfully had Peacock, was able to just go through easily. I forgot to record it, so I could just do that with the app there. Definitely things to work on, right? I mean, absolutely a ton to work on, but also some things that I was, slightly encouraged by. When it comes to Davis Warren, again, I thought he was really accurate. So there were some decision-making things that I think he needs to work on. The one that I brought up on our podcast with Justin yesterday, he dumps it out to Donovan Edwards on a 3rd and 13 because of the pre-snap read, except the linebacker starts flowing with Donovan and Kendrick Bell's open over the middle for possibly a first down, if not more. So just things like that will come to Davis as he continues to play more and more football. I mean, you got to think he hasn't started a live game since 2019. Right. And so for him, he's had a lot of playing time over the last couple of years as the backup, but I feel like with Davis, the more and more football he plays, I think, it's going to start to slow down for him. And he's going to start to make some of those throws, like the throw to Freddie Moore. I think he was either a little bit late or just didn't put enough on it. I think if he's on time with that, that's a touchdown. Moore had his guy beat. That came right. I was at like the 10-yard line. That came right to us. And then the other deep shot that they took, Tyler Morris just kind of gave up on the route. He had an out and up.
He didn't kind of. That's being kind. He just stopped. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, love him, but there's no way you can't watch that replay and think.
If he sprints out of his break, that's a touchdown. I thought Davis put it on a really good trajectory. So, and then Colston had a drop, which I am certainly okay with just moving on from that. Say, hey, it happens because we'll get to Colston and the tight ends, but that was clearly the number one target for Davis Warren for good reason.
Yeah, I thought he looked really good when he had a clean pocket. You know what I mean? And when he had a clean pocket, he throws a very accurate ball with zip on it, and the ball placement was pretty exceptional for the entire game. Some of the things that you have not acknowledged, I think he did kind of decide where he was going pre-snap, and that's to be expected. He's making his first start in front of that big crowd. He'll get better at that. I think, where things got a little messy is when the pocket wasn't necessarily clean. And I think those issues, many of those are easy fixes. PFF gave Donovan Edwards, typically a pretty good blocker, and Max Bredesen the lowest pass blocking grades of their career. So you run all the games they've played. They both were, missed assignments. Colston Loveland normally a really good and willing blocker. Commits the cardinal sin and lets the end right across his face. Obviously, anyone that watched saw some of the issues at guard and center. So I think there's a lot to be cleaned up there. And I think a lot of those, it's simple to say it's easy fix, but are fixable things with the talent and coaching on that staff. So like I said, watching a second time and realizing how nuanced some of those mistakes were and out of habit mistakes by guys like Bredesen, Loveland, and Donovan Edwards. I think that when they see the tape, they'll correct those. And giving him a clean pocket, I'm excited about what he can do.
Yeah, well, and when you think about the 5 new starters on the offensive line, right? I mean, Miles Hinton started some games last year, and Gio started some games in 2022. But as a unit, this is their first start together as those 5. And they also, brought in Crippen for a handful of plays in place of Dominic Giudice, who had won the job, which was surprising to a lot of people, myself included, because Crippen and Anderson had been, kind of anointed as the next center for the last 3 years. So to see Giudice kind of come in, I think with those guys, and to your point about Donovan, Khalil had a really nice pass pro block that he came across the line to pick up that allowed, I don't remember what play it was, but I know Davis was able to get the ball out and get a completion. So, some things to your point that are very fixable that are going to help, not only Davis Warren, but the run game. And then also hopefully, open some things up when the run game clicks, open some things up with some of the receivers outside of just throwing the ball to Colston Loveland. So yeah, for a first start with a brand new offense, essentially with one returning starter and Colston Loveland, I would have loved to have seen more, but I also wasn't like, oh my gosh, this guy, like this is 2017 again, John O'Corn. Like I didn't come out thinking that. So no. I think there's a lot of room to grow. But that's the exciting thing, because it's the unknown and could turn out to be a really, really good college football player. And, I've seen a lot of people like, oh, walk on this, walk on that. That don't mean anything. I don't mean jack. If you can play football, you can play football. And Davis Warren is a kid that might have been a 4-star had he not had to beat leukemia and had his senior year canceled because of COVID playing in California. So, he's a guy that's obviously got a fantastic story, but, you think about the pressures of life and death. Oh, hey, I threw an interception in the first quarter of a game. Okay, let me just come back. And I thought he rebounded from that pretty well.
Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good. I mean, was it exceptional? No, but, I think way too much emphasis gets put on high school recruiting rankings and status they enter the program with. I mean, I know, living in the South, how upset Georgia was and how slow they were to accept that Stetson Bennett was a hell of a college quarterback because of his former walk-on status. All he does is leave as one of the winningest quarterbacks to ever play college football. And it took them a while to warm up to that idea. So, I don't give that any credence. Like, whatever. He looks
once
the
they
part.
step on campus, none of that matters. I mean, we've seen a lot of really good walk-ons come through the Michigan program. You think about the Glasgow brothers. You think about Jordan Kovacs. Andrew Vastardis was a starter at center as a former walk-on. So it doesn't really mean much to me either, Brian. So, talk about Davis Warren. Running backs, 2 different stories. And one of those stories is kind of continued from last year outside of some big moments. And I'm not going to sit here and rip Donovan Edwards because I feel like I don't know if I did that last year, but I know I wasn't super high at some points. I feel like with Donovan, and the thing about Donovan is his best run of the night gets called back on a pretty ticky-tack holding call on Josh Preeb that would have set them up inside the 20 coming out of halftime. You know, maybe you go get a touchdown there at 17-3. That changes the entire perception of this game and the kind of the narrative surrounding it. Unfortunately, you're brought back to 2nd and 17 with that hold. So, you know, for Donovan, that's unfortunate. But with Donovan, it's like, you know, the talent's there. You know, the athleticism's there. The vision was there in 2022. I mean, in last year in the championship game, you know, the one he runs into the back of his blockers, but he bounces it and scores. And then the other one was a hell of a cutback. He saw the lane, he cut right, and he was gone. I feel like sometimes with Donovan, it's like he's like, I gotta run this perfectly. Like it's gotta be the exact hole that the play calls for. And there was one time where Jay Du posted this clip, and he's
the best. He's the best, absolute best.
Absolutely. It's a 2nd and 1. He does a good job of getting the first down. He's patient and he runs, and it's a 2 or 3 yard gain. Man, if he cuts, he's got a receiver blocking. If he cuts left, he's maybe gone. And that's the thing about Donovan, where it's like you're gonna get some losses, right? And not comparing the players at all, because this is the greatest running back in NFL history. But Barry Sanders was very similar, boomer bust, right? Mm-hmm. Like you kind of take the good with the bad with Donovan. And honestly, I know you get the first down, so it's fine. But like I almost want to see him take more chances. And it's a fine line because you don't want him always bouncing things. But like if you see a hole and you got the ability, because Blake was great at this, jump cut and go, right? Like you see the guys are blocking down. You don't see anybody that's got that outside pursuit angle. I'm jump cutting and I'm taking a step into the ground and I'm gone. Like I want to see that from Donovan, because that's where he's really gonna add a lot of value in the run game. I need to see more from him in the pass game, and that's not his fault. That needs to come from Kirk Campbell and Sharon Moore. He needs to be moved around. They need to put him in motion. He needs to come in, come out. They need to do something to get him mismatches in the pass game, because we'll talk about the receivers. We need a weapon that can make big plays and get open. And he's a guy that I think can do that. I think he's a very good receiver in addition to being a pretty good running back when he's got the blocking. So I would love to know your thoughts on Donovan and kind of what you saw from him in the first game of his senior year.
Yeah, two main thoughts about the running back situation. One is, I think what made Haskins and Corum and Higdon all really good running backs, besides their ability to make big plays, is if there were 2 yards there, they got the 2 yards, and sometimes 3, and fell forward. Seems like, that's just not what Donovan Edwards is doing and able to do for us. And that's really frustrating on 1st and 2nd down. The one thing, and Michigan's not alone, so many college programs seem to do right now is, they run out multiple running backs and they kind of switch series. I'd love to see Michigan go to more of a pro style rotation and have Mullings come in on 1st, 2nd down, obviously, more running centered plays, and have him come there and have Donovan come in, like you had mentioned, and utilize his multidimensional skills and have him come down and be more of a 3rd down featured back and tap into what he's really, really good at. And that's not what they're doing, really. They're giving them both series at times. And so I'd love to see him switch up the rotations. I don't know what it is. I can't pinpoint Donovan Edwards. You and I talked about this week after week last year. I don't know what it is with him and what's missing at times, but I said to my group of guys that I talked to is, we all kind of went around and said, hey, what's your big prediction for the year? And mine seemed so obvious. It wasn't a really bold take, is that Mullings will lead the team in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. I just think he's the better fit for this offense. My last thought on the running back situation, I thought Mullings did look really, really good, but I cannot remember a game, maybe even Ohio State and Alabama, where Michigan only had 2 running backs carry the ball. I mean, I was expecting to see Benjamin Hall. I was hopeful to see, a carry or 2 from Jordan Marshall. And the fact that only 2 guys got carries, that's, it seemed like the offense and defense, we'll get the defense later, but had 2 totally different philosophies about rotation. The defense played everybody. The offense played very few guys. So, but they have to get that worked out this, with the newness at quarterback with Davis Warren. They have to get the running game going and getting it going well. So they need to figure out that rotation. They need to get more guys carries, and I'm hoping that this coaching staff can do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Khalil, I mean that, so the last drive, and I want to give Donovan props because he want to say he had the first 2 carries of their last touchdown drive. I think he got like 8 or 9 yards between the 2 carries. They bring in Khalil. Khalil has a big 15, 20-yard run. He's making dudes fall off him. He's making a miss. He spins. Got me a little nervous, but he holds on to the ball.
He does. He carries up high.
I know, man. Yeah, you need the Mike Hart 5 points of contact on that sucker. But, he comes in, he hits a cutback lane to the left side of the field, gets 9 yards or so, and then that's when they're able to get it in with a play action to Colson Loveland. I think this offense needs to really lean on play action, even if you're not running the ball well, because the reason you're sometimes not running the ball well is if you watch the game, these linebackers are 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, and they're on their heels, just like ready to, or on their toes, I guess, just ready to get downhill. So if you can kind of, mess with them a little bit, I think that's going to open the offense up a little bit more. Also want to talk about Alex Orji. We didn't really talk about him in the quarterback section. The way that they used him. I mean, he threw a touchdown pass for 3 yards. He put one in the dirt. He only had 2 passing attempts, but where he was huge. And I was really watching the end. And you can't always tell what the read is, who the read guy is on the defense. But rule of thumb is that end on the other side of the running back, right? So, man, it seemed like the correct read every time. The one where he was able to go get a first down, and I thought he had a ton of room. They just made a great tackle on him. He held that in. That mesh point was almost like Wake Forest. I mean, with how long that thing, and he did a great job. So,
he did.
I don't know what he's going to look like, coming into games, because you can really just key in, okay, it's going to be a run. And obviously in that point, you're 11 on 11, and you can't really, pick your poison. So I'm curious to see what they'll do with Orji moving forward. But I just wanted to say I thought he played well in the spots that he was able to get in. I thought, I don't know. I don't know what it looked like in fall camp. I think it just stinks for Orji because he didn't get a full drive. He didn't get to, really come in and get into a rhythm. So it's like, yeah, you don't want to throw it into the dirt, but like how much of that is just because you haven't thrown the ball all day?
I've heard a bunch of criticism about how they used him in terms of rotational, how they didn't see, to the point you made about he didn't get a drive, and when they used him and rhythm and all that. Watching it in real time and then watching it again, I didn't have any issue with how they used him. I think it's clear. I think there was a lot made in the offseason about how close that competition was. I don't think it was close. I don't have any insight. I wasn't at practice. Coach Moore and Coach Campbell aren't calling and giving me insights, but I don't think it was that close. And so with that in mind, why would you give your backup quarterback a series? Why would you give
because they haven't officially named a starter though? Is that competition open still?
No,
I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just I don't know. I mean,
I don't think Orji is a guy that can handle. He would make this offense even more one-dimensional than it already is going to be. I didn't have issue with it, and I think that might be an unpopular opinion because I've heard a lot of criticism about how they used him. But, the one thing you don't know when you bring him in on first down, you don't know that you're punting 3 plays later. You think you're getting ready to start an 8-10 play drive. And
that's a good point too.
I know, when he comes in and then we don't get the first down and they're like, well, he came in and then, Warren only had a couple of snaps. Well, they were planning on going 10 yards and scoring a touchdown. Right. And so I guess, I'll leave myself open to change my mind, but I didn't have any issue, none, with how they used him in the rotation. I like what he brings. It's clear that, that throw in the dirt shows probably what stopped him and prevented him from getting the job is too many throws like that. But I hope they keep using him just like how they did. I think there's more wrinkles that he can offer. I think he's a better passer than, his 2 pass attempts showed. But, I like what he brings. I think he brings pop, and I hope he plays 8 to 10 snaps every game.
Yeah, and I think I'm just coming from the perspective of and again, Michigan doesn't owe anybody anything as far as who they're announcing. But just from what they give to the insiders, what they give to Sam Webb and Ballas and these guys, right? Like up until this past week, like 4 days ago, it was Alex Orji's job, right? So what changed? And then so you go into it thinking, okay, it's still an open competition. And if this was 2022 when you play Colorado State and Hawaii, like Jim did with JJ and Cade, you maybe give each guy a game, but you can't do that with Texas, right? You have to have it locked down. So it felt like it was still open. And I guess if I look at it from the perspective that you have, that no, it's Davis Warren's job, then I totally agree with you. But I guess I was kind of coming in with the expectation of no, this thing's still still up in the air. And I mean, early in that game, I praised Davis, but it didn't seem like they really trusted him a lot, at least early in the game. Like there was that one drive where they got a first down and then they went screen, run, screen to the short side of the field of Tyler Morris. And so it was like, okay, what are, like, what's the, that was the one thing where it was like making me think at the game, like, what's going on here? So I don't know. It's an interesting position to be in. And you don't have the cupcakes to be able to do what they did in 2022. You've really just got to go. And this is like, obviously they had the controversy, quote unquote, in 2022. I always thought that was super clear that JJ would eventually win that job. But, it's kind of the first time we've had this experience of like, who's going to be the starter, right? Like, I know, again, 2020, people in the comments, you can roast me for this, but 2022, I always thought it was going to be JJ. I always thought that he would win it. And then that Colorado State game solidified that for me. So it's like, I mean, we going back to like Wilton Spate versus John O'Corn in 2016 is like the last time we really had it up in the air like this. So I don't know. It's a different dynamic for us, Brian, and we're not really used to this. Yeah. So it's new for everybody. But we talked enough about the quarterbacks, the running backs. Let's talk about the tight ends. I want to talk about something fun. Colson Loveland is going to win the Mackey Award. He's going to break Jake Butt's all-time career receiving yard mark. He may get to the receptions mark. He has 69 receptions right now. He needs 70 to break it because Jake Butt has 138, I believe. So he needs 70 more catches throughout the season. And hey, if he does what he did against Fresno State the rest of the year, he's going to break it. But he may get there, Brian, because they may just force feed him the ball because he's that good.
He's very good. He's so fun to watch. He's the drop was one of the most shocking things I've seen watching a Michigan game in a while because you just expect him to catch anything in his radius. I mean, his arms are so long, he catches everything. He moves really, really well. I know Brock Bowers moved well too. I mean, he makes guys miss. I mean, he's
physical.
He's an impressive guy, man. He's fun to watch. I think we didn't see again what I mentioned earlier about not a lot of rotation. We heard about so many tight ends that are looking good. I know they love Klein. Klein only played 18 snaps. We didn't see Zach Marshall. I know they love what they're seeing out of him. He didn't play. So they didn't go real deep there. I think Klein looked good and solid in his limited action. I think where the real frustration for me confusion was the wide receiving room. I'd
rather see Marlon Klein and Colson Loveland on the field at the same time with Max Bredesen than some of the guys we had out there.
That's the point I was getting to.
I love these guys, but
Max Bredesen played 18 out of 62 offensive snaps, meaning we only ran two tight end snaps like 3 times. And you think of the identity of this team and some of the passing issues, I think you want to get your best players on the field. My point of bringing the wide receivers wasn't really about the wide receivers. It was about let's put our best players in the field.
Absolutely. Get the best 11 out there.
Right. And so I'm hoping that's a little bit of window dressing for Texas. I'm hoping we come out and see a whole lot more of that. And if you go back to what I said about how Davis Warren looked with a clean pocket, we're so much more likely to give him a clean pocket with Loveland and Klein out there versus, let's face it, a wide receiving core that's not very big. I think they're willing blockers, but there's, a bunch of tiny dudes out there.
No, absolutely. I'd love to see more. I guess you would consider it 13 personnel with if you have Bredesen, Klein, and or Klein or Marshall and Colston into the game. I don't know because Bredesen's kind of a hybrid H-back, fullback, tight end. I don't know. The one thing I will say about Max is a stud, as we know. I do not need to see him motion out and split out wide. I just don't understand. We don't need to experiment with that. Let him be who he is. If you want to line up Colson Loveland or Marlon Klein or Zach Marshall, a traditional tight end out wide, I have no problem with that. I don't need to see 44 jogging over to check with the official that he's on the line of scrimmage, and I just don't need that.
One thing with that, Tanner, that it would be wrong of me not to bring up is last year I said, because we break down kind of the analytics and stats, is Bredesen played a ton of snaps last year, and for the first 8 weeks, 85% of his snaps, I'm making that number up, but I bet I'm pretty close. 85% of his snaps were run plays. And I would say, at some point, good defenses are going to know if he's in the game, it's a run play. And so while I agree with you for the most part that I don't want to see him out wide either, it is nice to see them not telegraph what their plans are with him in the game. You know what I mean? So I don't want to see him out wide. Maybe there's better ways to utilize him in the passing game, but I was frustrated at times of how transparent that appeared to be. I'm like, if I can figure that out, good defensive coordinators can figure that out.
No, for sure. And I mean, you could, but there's different ways to incorporate the pass game with him.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
If you're in shotgun, he can be lined up on the other side of the quarterback to the other.
I don't know what
you can run pistol. But even to your point, I mean, if PFF is correct, and I have not charted this, I don't ever want to try to do that. That is just so monotonous. Shout out to Pro Football Focus. He was in the field for 25 plays, 6 pass plays, 19 run plays. So did they really alleviate that problem? Who knows? But again,
maybe by going out that wide, they thought it will count double.
I saw him stroll over. I was like, I don't know about that one. Keep him inside the tackle box and let him go to work. And hey, if you're going to run an offset eye or something, or a pistol, like with a play action where he rolls out like on a spider 2-wide banana where the fullback comes out into the flat, right? Like John Gruden made so famous. Like I'm cool with that too, right? Like obviously you want to keep the defense guessing when it comes to Max Bredesen, but he's just so much more effective when he's used the way that he needs to be used. But I want to see more 2 tight end sets. Hell, even 3 tight end sets if you think Zach Marshall and Klein are ready. And Jake Butt, we had him on the show a couple weeks ago, and this is a very obvious thing, but to his point, like he talks about with tight ends, they're so close to the line of scrimmage. They're a quarterback's best friend when they're lined up in line like that. So, if you have 2 tight ends on either side, give him a quick option to get rid of the ball if he needs to, or, hey, nothing's open. We're running that tight end wide delay, right? That Michigan has run so well. They did it against Ohio State right before Blake Corum's big touchdown. I remember at Nebraska in 21 when that was a close game. Man, Eric Alwas and Luke Schoonmaker were just, they were chipping and they were getting out and they were wide open. So give your quarterback some easy throws, especially with these guys who are athletes who get out in space and make some yards after the catch.
I feel like that's the only route Sean McKeon ran.
Well, hey,
he was good. I loved him.
Did he make the Lions? I didn't see that. I don't. Okay.
He got cut. I don't know. I think he's in the practice squad.
Okay. Well, hey, there's worse professions out there. Yeah. All right. I said this before. We're going to talk about the offense a little bit more than the defense, I think, because of some of the things that happened. Let's go talk about the wide receivers. Not a great day for PFF. Colson Loveland was the highest graded guy by far. He had an 89.4. Everybody else was in that 60 to low 70s range. Not a lot for these guys to kind of show on the field. They took a couple deeper shots, the one to Moore and the one to Morris. Other than that, though, they didn't really get the guys involved. I will say Kendrick Bell. Do we have another Bell, Brian? Is that we got another one?
He looked good.
Yeah, no, I liked his game. He seemed to get open, and he made some plays after the catch.
It was not on my bingo card, Kendrick Bell having the 3rd most snaps at wide receiver. That was not something I expected to see. But no. I was expecting that more than I was expecting to see Peyton O'Leary walk out there with the starters.
Freddie Moore had 3 snaps. I don't get it. Is he just like, because he beat his corner on that post route? He's open,
team, isn't he? I mean, he's.
I don't know about that, but I mean, he's football fast. Like he's a good route runner, so he's got good cuts. Yeah, I don't know if they've really given that much of an opportunity to shine, so I'm not really going to hold these guys to too much. I want to see give me some Maj on a drag route or a go route or something to just get. Obviously those are 2 different things. I know that, but like get the ball underneath in his hands, let him go to work, or let him take the top off the defense. Like, give me something, And same with Tyler Morris. Like, he's seen Tyler Morris in the Rose Bowl run away from Alabama defensive backs. So we know he's got a little bit of get up, and we talked about his give up on that out and up that he should have probably hauled in for a touchdown. But I want to see that. Give me some mesh, give me some drag routes. Like let me see these guys with the ball in their hands. Give Davis Warren an easy throw. Like, just give me something. Give me an RPO on like a slant and read the backer. And if the backer comes down, like throw the ball. Let me see these guys in space. That's what I want to see.
Yep. I agree completely.
All right. Well, that was the wide receivers. Just again, not a whole lot to talk about. Colson Loveland got the bulk share of targets on Saturday. So, we're going to need those guys if Michigan has, wants to be able to keep up with Texas. But offensive line, again, 5 new guys, a couple speed bumps. There's a 3rd and 1 that Dom Jadis got absolutely blown up on. So we know, first 2.5, 3 quarters, not great. Pass pro, couple issues, but otherwise, more often than not, it was a clean pocket. There was miscommunication. I can tell you on that sack, Miles Hinton was pissed off at somebody or multiple people because he was not happy. It happened right in front of us. He was livid. I could hear him yelling. So, communication issues, missed assignments. Jadis is just too high on that 3rd and 1. He gets blown up by the DT. You got to be lower. Pad level's too high. The one thing that's keeping my sanity, Brian, is that last drive we touched on earlier, they were blocking. They were hitting the assignments. They were meshing as a unit. So it's like, do we get the first 3-quarter Michigan offensive line? Or, as we know, offensive lines take a little bit longer to gel, just like last year. It wasn't pretty at all times. And Blake Corum probably masked a lot of that. Like, I think if Blake Corum was on this team, we're probably like, oh, okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's Blake Corum. But we don't have Blake Corum on this team. So you got to be a little bit more precise with the offensive line. So what are your thoughts, man? Because maybe this is just me drinking Kool-Aid, but I'm like, hey, 4th quarter, you have to have it. Unfortunately, you're in a have-to-have-it situation against Fresno State in the 4th quarter. But what do? They run it down their throat for 6 plays, and then they throw a touchdown. So what do you think? Is it in the middle there? Do you think we'll see more of that last drive O-line moving forward? Or, are you going to be the pessimist and say, this first part of the game might be more realistic?
Well, first I'll start with the positive. Miles Hinton, we didn't hear his name all night. I think he played a heck of a game and very few issues from his side of the field or with his assignments. I thought, I mentioned it earlier, part of the run blocking, pass blocking scheme, the responsibility falls on the backs. They had an awful night. But I feel like when I watched it the second time, I was frustrated like everyone else watching it in real time. But when I watched again, it's that cohesiveness of the unit, right? And the one thing that I appreciated this whole offseason, Sharon Moore has said, it's going to take a minute. It took a minute, even when our lines were awesome, that it takes a minute to gel. And many of the issues, particularly at center and guard, it was where that pass off's at, where you have that relationship, the guy's going to be there, where you have one assignment, but the defense give you something else that you're not expected to see, and so you got to adjust, and you want to trust that the guy and know what the behavior of the guy next to you is going to do. And I felt like that mesh that you referred to, and that's what's kind of a key to really strong offensive lines. That just communication wasn't there. That trust that wasn't there. And so I'm hopeful. The talent of this group is obviously really high. The coaching staff with the back-to-back Joe Moore awards, we have the guys. And so I'm going to lean on track record of those guys and this program that they're going to get it going. Was it great? No. I'd love to see Michigan football in the 4th quarter and just say, here's what we're going to, that boa constrictor notion from the past few years is it's the 4th quarter and we need to grind out the clock and we're going to run it at you and try to stop us. It was wonderful to see that. And so hopefully, we see more of that. In his press conference, Ron Moore said that the switch to Crippen, that was planned pregame, because I know a lot of fans that we were watching, they're like, oh, he's making a change because we're struggling up the middle. And no, that was planned because that job was so close. And so, other than that, it wasn't, we're spoiled at that position. And so yeah. I'll choose optimism like you that we're going to get that right. And we're going to learn this week against Texas what that really looks like.
Yeah. And I don't think it's to your point, I don't think it's a talent thing. I think it's just a the mental side of things and just, getting on the right assignments, right? Like, I think there were a lot of times where, you're maybe a block or two away that, one of the guys takes on the wrong guy or it goes for the wrong gap. Like, you may have some explosives. So that's certainly something that can get ironed out. That's not going to be something that hopefully that's typically not an issue all season, right? If you had, hey, this guy's just completely undersized and just getting dominated, like, okay,
right.
That's one thing. But when it's those mental errors, and Sharon talked about it, week 1 to week 2 is typically the biggest jump for not only a team, but also an offensive line group, because you've had a game under your belt. You can go back and watch the film, you get another week of practice where you're able to hit home on those points. Maybe they were coaching points all fall camp, but until it happens in a game, it's like, okay, this has to get fixed. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. I definitely think that there's something to work with there. I don't think it's doom and gloom. I don't think this is 2017 Michigan. Don't even pick on those guys, but I definitely think
catching strays over here.
Well, I watched. I have 2 eyeballs. I did watch that team, and they ran on Minnesota though. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the offense. Let's talk about something a little bit more positive, and we'll spend less time on this because we don't want to be here for an hour and a half.
No.
But let's talk about the defense, man. And this is where I'm going to, again, I did this all last year, question PFF, because I don't know how you could sit here and watch Mason Graham play football and say, oh, that guy's a 61.3. I don't know what they were pinpointing as his issues. The play that he's doubled and he spins back to turn it into a 1 yard gain on that running back. I mean, that dude is just a monster. Kenneth Grant, I thought, played well. He was a big reason, and Todd Blackledge pointed this out on the broadcast. He gets his hands up. That quarterback's a little shorter. He's got to put that ball high, tips off the receiver's hands, goes into Zeke Berry's hands for that interception, sets up the first touchdown. I thought Kenneth played great. Great to see Rayshon Benny, man. Gets a sack. Jair Hill comes up on that short dump off, blows him up. Kid doesn't fall down, and then there's Rayshon cleaned it up. I thought Rayshon looked explosive. Great pursuit, hustling, just a lot of energy. Just so glad to see him back on the field, man. You know, he unfortunately did not get to play in the national championship last year. He's a big part of what, you know, Michigan did last year. He made big plays. He had the strip sack or not strip sack, but the forced fumble on Drew Aller in Happy Valley last year. And, you know, he's been an unsung hero on this defense for the last, 2 or 3 years. I think seeing him back out there was awesome. And, you know, some of the younger guys got a lot of, a little bit of run. Cameron Brandt played a lot. He was playing a lot at edge, which, I don't know. I thought he showed some juice. I liked what I saw from him as far as what I could tell. So what are your thoughts on the DTs, man? Best unit in the country as far as the starters go. And then you got Rayshon Benny, who's no slouch himself. So you got a lot of talent at this position group.
You get so frustrated by the PFF grades. And what do they always say about good interior defensive linemen? They make their pass rushers look really, really good. And so whether it's the stats of the sacks that Moore and Stewart had, or the PFF grades, Stewart and Moore were two of the highest grade players in the country this week by PFF, both grading over 90, and over 90 graded PFF is like an A++. So, the fact that they didn't necessarily make the big splash plays, but they allowed Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart to play like monsters. I mean, it's funny, the pass rush efficiency grade, that you look at that focus on what creates a sack, not who gets the sack. Derek Moore played a large role in, all of our pass rush success. He was really, really good. Like you said, the defensive tackles are monsters. We're so fortunate that we're going to go as far as they take us. I mean, they're the heart and soul of this team right now. And I'll tell you, I think that we're going to see sack totals this year that are real impressive. Stewart looks like he's taken a step. He was all over the field. He was in pass coverage. I mean, that guy was an absolute monster. Shades of, a Josh Uche type guy that was a really good pass rusher, but also made plays in space. I mean, he made plays out in space too. That guy's going to have a really big year, I think. So really excited about the defensive front. When times where it looked shaky out there, it was like, okay, we have those guys to lean on. And I think we'll be leaning on them all year.
No, absolutely. I thought Josiah Stewart, the 2 sacks, right? So the first sack, Derek Moore forces the pressure on the backside, quarterback steps up into Josiah Stewart. Josiah Stewart does a great job being there. But the second sack is the pursuit. He chases the quarterback down. I mean, he comes out wide around the tackle and has to get there and sprint and get on his horse, and he does, and he brings him down. And then to your point, when he's playing in coverage on that 3rd and 8, he drops, and they try to set up a screen. That lineman can't even get to Josiah. He's already thrown the dude down. I mean, Josiah Stewart, I thought, for my money, was the best player on the field. And that's maybe me being a little unfair to Mason too, because Mason does Mason things. You're just like, oh, okay, cool. That's cool. But as far as like wow moments, Josiah Stewart. I mean, it was all over the field. And then Derek Moore was fantastic as well. Both guys were good in the run game. They're big, they're physical, they're fast, they're nasty. Like, I love these guys, man. Like, you lose out on Jalen Harrell and Bray McGregor, who both make the 53-man rosters for their respective teams. With shout outs to those guys. We thought they were studs last year, right? Like, they were kind of underappreciated, I thought. And they had big moments their entire careers. But man, these two guys, like, we're in good hands with Stewart and Moore. So what'd you think about Jay-Sean Barham coming in, man? He didn't really have a lot of opportunities. He did get a pressure that forced quarterback to throw the ball out of bounds. But man, is he fast and physical.
He's so fast. And to see a guy that size. I mean, he looks like a defensive end out there. He's so big and so fast. I think he makes things happen. I think we're going to see some huge plays from him this year.
Yeah.
He didn't make notable plays, but if anyone that was watching showed him having a presence early and often, I think he's a special kid, man.
Yeah, I thought all the linebackers were pretty good in the run game. I mean, in the pass game, they were getting RPO'd a little bit, so got to clean that up. But that also that's more on the play call. But I thought Ernest Hausmann was steady. That's kind of what he is, man. He may not wow you all the time, but he's just going to be in the right place at the right time and make a good tackle. That's kind of who Ernest Hausmann is. Jimmy Rolder had a really nice play. He was kind of stand up, almost in like a 3-4 outside linebacker position, just unblocked. I mean, nobody touches him. He just blows it up in the backfield. So nice to see Rolder healthy, man, because his freshman year, I thought he had a lot of potential. He's hurt last year. He doesn't really play. He plays in the Ohio State game. He gets beat by Cade Stover, which covering Cade Stover one-on-one for Jimmy Rolder is maybe not his game. So, he's also banged up too. So seeing him, he looked more athletic. I thought he had more pop, more juice. So, I think we're
going to see a lot of Jimmy this year. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps.
That's Jaden Hood didn't get much run. I don't think he played at all, but yeah, we don't really have that much depth at the linebacker position. But the guys that are there in that first string are studs. I think Barham is going to be a dude. Like I said, he didn't get to show much, but he got a lot of pressure. Like anytime Wink wanted to dial it up, he was getting close to getting home. And affecting the quarterback's throw. So DBs, Will Johnson, saw a lot of people, myself included, in the moment. I was like, what the hell? And I'm like, wait a minute. He gave up like 2 catches. That's pretty good. And then, oh, by the way, he had a pick 6 that he read. And Brian, I'm sure you saw it. They pointed it out. I saw it the play before. I'm like, oh, he wants to jump that. And they went over top to I can't remember if it was a tight end or receiver. It was like a bigger receiver. And they get down to the 10, and you're like, oh my God, this is stupid. This game should have been over. The picks were called back, the dumbest penalties you've ever seen on TJ Guy. And they try to go to that little. Yeah. It was, and then Jayshawn Barham gets a unsportsmanlike conduct for trying to get the towel back. Those guys, by the way, Brian, I'm a normal person. I'm not one for confrontation. But I will tell you, I heard a lull in the crowd. And I was like, this is my moment. And I just let those guys have it. I saw the L on the back of the I said, hey, linesman, you're a bum. It felt good. And then I felt after the fact, I was like, that was kind of mean of me. But, that's fine. I was really close to them. I was row 2. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, you had great seats.
Terrible drive for the officials there. Just ref show. So Will Johnson, they try that. They had run that fake where the receiver kind of drops to it for a quick little screen. He picks it. I mean, he jumps it. It's clear as day. He'd been watching film, and he takes 86 yards back. Again, a lot of people, other fan bases too, like, oh, Will Johnson got beat on this route. Okay, sometimes you're going to lose a double move route. So it is what it is. And he didn't even catch the ball. What do you think of Will, man? Because he said he didn't play up to his standards, but Will's standards are like no catches, so it's kind of hard to grade.
I think he knows how good he is. I think he took chances. He played risky, football. He went for it. And so I hope he keeps playing that way. I thought the secondary as a whole all played really good. I think when you watch it again, I think, I should have looked at that. Mikey Keene played a hell of a football game.
That dude's a dog.
If you look at their passing attack, every one of his passes, not everyone, the majority of his passes were exactly where the scheme told him to go. Like he made the perfect read. You watch the plays, and I watched them all a couple of times, is their completions were all to the one spot where the defense was vulnerable.
Absolutely. They were great throws. They were drops the bucket.
Yeah. Yep. And so, those are things we have to tighten up because we play a lot of good quarterbacks this year. But, from scheme and his decision-making, shout out to him. But I thought everyone looked good. I thought Makari Page looked really, really good. What's funny is I think when Quentin Johnson comes back, because he's such a big guy and such a physical player, I think many people, myself included, are concerned that he's the physical box safety, not the coverage guy. And all he did was go out and have the highest coverage grade of all our defensive backs in that game. I think he played really, really well. I think, like a Michael Barrett, they don't play the same position, but guys have been in the program for so long that finally get around to that 5th season of, okay, now we're going to see the fruits of everything that the program's put into them and all the hard work they've put in themselves. And so I think he's going to have a really good year. I was really surprised that we didn't see
Mangum
at all. I thought we'd see a little bit more Hillman, although he played 16 snaps. All the buzz about him. I think the guy I was most excited about was early on Zeke Berry because of the, obviously the early interception, and he just looks like a great athlete. But much like I said about Miles Hinton on the offensive side, we didn't hear Jair Hill's name all night. And when you play corner, opposite of Will Johnson, you're going to be put some tough spots. And they didn't make any plays on him. I think Barry and Hill are something to be really excited about. Two of the more shining spots of two guys making their first career starts.
No, absolutely. I mean, Jair Hill, I thought played extremely well. I don't remember seeing anything completed on him. And to your point that I wanted to bring up as well, I mean, one of the completions that I believe sets up it's on their touchdown drive. It's 28-yard reception. I mean, Will Johnson's in the dude's hip pocket. Mm-hmm. And it's just dropping the bucket from Mikey Keene. So Mike Keene's a guy that played a lot of football last year, threw 24 touchdowns, 10 picks, almost 3,000 yards. And that was a team that was at 1.8-1, finishes 9-4. So again, really good Fresno State team. We haven't talked about them. That's a good football team. That's a team that would beat a lot of teams on Michigan's schedule on the lower end. I mean, let's be real here. That's a really good football team. So, yeah, he made some throws, man. He made a throw on a comeback route to the top of the field. That was a really nice throw. A lot of those were not necessarily bad coverages or busts. It was just, the right throw. And they've got a lot of chemistry between those receivers and the quarterback. So, yeah, Zeke Berry obviously gets the big play with the interception. Otherwise, I don't remember too much from Zeke. But hey, he's taking over for Mikey. Going to start with the pick. Mikey's a guy that got a lot of interceptions. So nice to see that that's continuing. Macari, man, I'll tell you, it never ceases to amaze me when I'm close on the field, because when you're up in the stadium, you can't really tell. When you're close, these guys are so big. Tommy Dolman is massive, the punter, by the way. But Macari is a physical presence, dude.
That's one thing I like about the staff. I'm sorry I jumped in on you there, but Will's a big corner, Hill's a big guy, Macari's huge. It's so nice to have a defensive backfield that has that size and athleticism, because there were some years there where had a bunch of 5'10" guys out there, and that would hurt us at key moments. And so it's a big athletic group, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah. So QJ, I thought, he almost had the pick, played relatively well, didn't see any busts. I really liked what I saw from Amir Hall. He had a big pass breakup. I mean, they scored the next play because cover 0 and you're playing off man on 3rd and 8 in the red zone. I think Week's going to adjust and maybe self-scout himself a little bit. But and also Jaden didn't take the best angle there, but he was also put in a really poor position. So didn't love that. But yeah, Amir Hall comes in with a big hit. I think MGO Blog made this point that he is Josh Wallace from last year, but he's just not starting because Jair Hill exists. So not a bad depth piece, right? Not a bad guy to have there. Wesley Walker got a lot of run. The transfer coming in from Tennessee, thought he looked pretty good. He did have a route. I couldn't tell where the ball was. He was running stride for stride with the receiver. I think the ball was a little out of both guys' reach, but that was the only time I saw him really tested. Otherwise, I thought he looked really good. Hillman, he played a lot more late. To your point of the rotations. And then Miles Pollard got picked on a little bit. They just kind of ran almost like a fade towards the sideline, and he got beat. And Mikey Keene threw a great ball. So, a lot of the people freaking out, like, hey, man, you're gonna have quarterbacks that make throws like that in college football, like they're Division I quarterbacks on scholarship, like they're gonna make throws. I'll tell you this, Brian, I'm really glad Michigan doesn't have to face that. What's that quarterback over at Syracuse, man? Like 4 touchdowns the other day. I'm glad they ain't gotta face that guy, man. That guy looks pretty damn good.
I loved their head coach's quote after the game, by the way. Thanking Ryan Day. The one play about the only downside bad play the whole night really that stood out to me, other than I think the moment seemed a little big for Miles Pollard, but Jaden McBurrows on the lone Fresno State touchdown. They're in cover 0, and he's yelling at the sidelines, yelling, at who wears the green? Is it Aaron? He's yelling. He doesn't know what his responsibility is. It's so obvious. He's looking all around. Cover 0, no one in the center of the field. So he's hedging as far to the center of the field as possible to cover this open space, because it's clear he doesn't know the play call. And so they catch the ball out in the flat, and he's got to take just a tough angle. Maybe not, you can make an argument that wasn't the best angle, and just looks a little silly. The wide receiver made a great play, but that was clearly he got put in a bad spot there. So, as much as someone might want to be critical of him, it was clear that he didn't understand the assignment.
100%.
Maybe you criticize him for not, mentally understanding the assignment and listening and knowing the situation. But I'm gonna chalk that one up to not playing a lot of snaps in his career yet, and then not fully embracing and being comfortable with the scheme in that play call.
Well, and my thing is we spend so much time talking about how good the front four is. You don't need to bring 6. You don't need to go cover 0. You don't need to do that, especially not in the red zone. You can drop.
You have to do that a little bit to confuse people. But
run a stunt. Right. Run a stunt with these guys. They're so athletic. You don't need to do that. So I think that Wink will learn that. I mean, dude, look, Wink Martindale has forgotten more about football in the last day than I'll probably ever know. So let's, but just from a layman, I don't like going cover 0 and off man coverage like that. Because if Jaden's in his grill and he's able to, hand fight a little bit, maybe that play takes longer to develop and then you get some pressure, right? But you just are like, hey, just run a quick little route and let Mikey Keene throw it, and nobody can get home because we're getting the ball out so quick because we don't, you got to pick one side. The receiver's got the advantage of I can go left or I can go right. So I didn't love that. So I'm not really going to put that on Jaden, too much because we know, Jaden can be a really good ball player for this team. No PFF grades. Dominic Zavada, stud.
Player of the game.
Lou Groza award already. I mean, dude, I was like, oh damn, okay, and he just money. And they hit the net on the 53-yarder. It's like, okay, this guy, we got another James Turner, another Money Moody. We're blessed with kickers. And that's, look, people don't realize, man, that can win you football games and it can lose you football games. So if you got a guy that consistently you get to the 35-yard line and you feel good about points, hey, man, that's not the case for every team in college football. Not even the NFL, as we know as Lions fans. You get to the 35 and you feel good about his range. Now, depends on, the conditions and the weather and the wind and stuff, but like, hey, calm conditions like it was on Saturday night, you feel good about him taking a 55-yard field goal. That's pretty good. Some teams got to get to the 20-25 to feel good about kicking a field goal.
Well, I mean, we watched the 2 primetime games, Texas A&M, Notre Dame. We had missed kicks. USC, that game's not a game if their kicker makes that kick. So, you shouldn't take it for granted, but I know we've been blessed with some really strong kickers the last 10 years. And, looks like we have another gem now.
Even like going back to like when I was a kid, like Garrett Rivas, I always felt good about anytime he was kicking a field goal, always felt good about him. I looked it up because I'm doing an article on something regarding this. I didn't realize that the Lou Groza Award's only been around since like 2003. And maybe I need to check my source on that. Maybe it only went back to 2003, but it was like ESPN. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But Jake Moody's the only guy that won it. I for sure thought that I just said his name. I'm blanking, man. This is that foggy dad brain because I don't get any sleep. Garrett Rivas might have won that because he was really consistent for the Wolverines.
He was awesome. Yeah.
And Phil Babb before
really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then one other thing I want to talk about. Well, 2 other things. I don't need Kalel Mullins returning punt or kicks. I just don't.
Nope.
Put somebody else back there. Put Samaj back there. The one thing I will say, both Samaj and Tyler Morris, I thought did a great job of judging punts. They didn't let anything bounce that they didn't need to let bounce, and they didn't try to catch anything that was, too deep. I thought both were really good. I mean, not saying it all in the same explosive way, but like kind of Jabril-esque in the way that they saved yards. And that's important. I thought Samaj took a big step from last year's punt returner because he's electric. You obviously see the Iowa game. You see the mistake in the Rose Bowl. I thought he was very diligent in what he was going to return and what he was going to let bounce or what he was going to fair catch. So really, really glad to see that from both guys. I think that both guys look much improved from fielding punts last year where, hey, Tyler Morris, he's explosive as well. I think about the one at Nebraska where he lets bounce and then he picks it up and runs it a little bit. So just, more consistency in that was nice to see. So yeah, I thought the special teams were they were maybe the graded out the highest. I mean, the defense played great, but the special teams, there was really no mistakes. So
all good in the special teams department.
Absolutely. Again, just, hey, I'll take Samaj back there. Give me Cole Cabana. I don't need Kalel returning kicks. We saw, God forbid, I'll just say this. We've seen things happen with prominent starters returning punts and kicks that I don't want to see happen. That's what I'll say.
Right.
So I think that's it, man. We did it. First show back in a minute. Second season of Blue by the Numbers. Just love getting on here, chop it up with you, man. And it's Texas game. I think what we're gonna do is the same format as last year. We're just gonna come on like this week is because of Labor Day, but we'll probably do like a Sunday upload Monday. This time we're doing a Monday upload Tuesday, but I think that's what we'll do. And yeah, it's just good to be back, man. And hopefully everyone liked the show. But I think we'll just do the one show a week, and then we'll just recap each game, and because we'll be doing a lot of Texas preview on the main podcast that we do on Blue by 90. So, Brian, let them know where they can find you, man, and I'll outro it.
Big house.
Absolutely, it's on the screen there. Thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate you. You can follow us on Twitter at Blue by 90. Go to blueby90.com for our latest articles, breaking news, all that good stuff, and find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Blue by 90 for podcasts. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.